and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming today to this event in Nottingham on behalf of Change UK, the independent group, probably, I suspect, Britain's newest political party. We're about 3 weeks into our existence, and I'm very grateful for your forbearance with having to move room. We had ourselves all set up beautifully with a stage and everything next door, but we've probably got about twice as many people as we anticipated, and I didn't want us to be turning people away. So thank you so much for coming today. I should introduce myself. I'm Chris Leslie. I am the Change UK Member of Parliament for Nottingham East, which is where we are. It's a bank holiday as well, so thank you very much for giving up your weekend. We've got a great set of speakers for you today, because obviously this is a national political party. Change UK has been set up really partly because of the events of British politics in recent times. And you don't need me to really explain why we are here today. Many of you will remember how back in February, I, along with some of my other colleagues in the Labour Party, decided enough was enough and we had to leave the Labour Party. It was a very difficult thing to do. It was quite a hard thing to do, and certainly potentially quite a sacrifice for many of those of our colleagues who've left the Labour Party. And when we did that, 2 days later, we were joined by others who were leaving the Conservative Party. I'm delighted we've got Anna Soubry here today, who's going to say a few words in a moment to explain her side of the story. So it's very rare in British politics that people from two different political traditions come together to try and sort out the mess that is Britain's broken politics. And unfortunately, this is a story of broken politics and why our current political parties have basically left the country in the lurch, and in particular landed us with quite a mess when it comes to Brexit. So what we did, we decided when we heard that the European elections were going to come along, we didn't necessarily expect these European elections to come so quickly, because you'll remember that the main parties were trying to get to the deal before the European summit, but that all came to pieces. So we sat down, the 11 members of Parliament from the independent group, and we decided, what are we going to do? Are we going to sit out these European elections? Are we going to just let the situation continue and drift? Or are we going to actually take the opportunity to stand up and try and do something about it? Because it's one thing for our integrity saying, you know, I can't put up with Corbynism in the Labour Party, and of course there's the anti-Semitism issues and the issues to do with national security and all those other things, but it was the Brexit stance in particular that drove me to say, we cannot allow Nigel Farage to have a free pass at these elections that are going to be coming. So we sat down, I sat down, logged onto the Electoral Commission website. It's a bit like a planning application process. You have to feed in all your details, and we knew that we had about 48 hours to register as a political party, otherwise there wouldn't have been that opportunity. And so yes, it's been a bit rough and ready, and you know, I quite like the idea of the independent group as the name, but we decided upon Change UK because ultimately what we want to do is give the British public the chance to change our political system. Change has to be on the ballot paper, and that's what it will be on the 23rd of May. Yeah. So what we're going to do for you today is we're going to talk about the challenges that we have facing the country. There are so many long-term issues that are being neglected because Brexit has crowded out the airspace for so many of those things, whether it's elderly social care, we're still waiting for that green paper from the government, whether it's to do with what we're going to do in the world of work and how we're going to skill people up and give them the education that they need. Our NHS, of course, not being attended to in terms of keeping it and defending it as a world-class national health service. And on climate change, as we've seen particularly, so many people are frustrated that these big issues are being neglected. And if we ever want to deal with some of these things, we can have a go as the UK on our own, but far better if we work as a collective within our continent, with our nearest allies, with our friends and our neighbours, and try and pool that collective action from across the whole of Europe on some of these crucial concerns. So on climate change, for example, if we want to absolutely stop that global warming situation worsening, we have to act collectively. It shouldn't be rocket science to explain that working together with our nearest neighbours is far more effective. We now have to make that case again to the British public. And so whether it's on those issues to do with those crucial long-term questions that are being neglected, whether it's to do with the fact that we should be devising policy on the basis of evidence and not ideology, and whether it's actually some of the bigger, wider issues, the Northern Ireland situation and the fact that nobody appears to have thought through when they were campaigning for Brexit, the fact that you cannot leave the single market and continue to have an open border, frictionless arrangement between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. So many of these issues have come to light more recently, and that is why we've taken the view 100% in Change UK that we have to have a people's vote, and if we do, we will unequivocally campaign to remain in the European Union. Remaining together, remaining hopeful, and remaining European are very much the themes that we will have in our campaign. That's why we will be asking people to vote for change and vote for Change UK on the 23rd of May. And I would like to first of all invite some of our fantastic candidates who have been selected really in record time and who are now on the ballot paper. We have candidates all across Great Britain. Not all of them will have time to speak today. I want to pay particular tribute to Kate Godfrey, who is our #1 candidate on the European list. Kate. For Britain Stronger in Europe. She has a great CV working in international fora across the world and has fantastic international experience, and thank you, Kate, for agreeing to be one of our candidates. We also have Pankaj Gulab, if you want to stand up, Pankaj. Pankaj is a retired school head teacher, and he's a magistrate, and we're delighted that you're here with us as one of our candidates as well. But first of all, if I can ask Narinder Sharma, who's a charity chief executive, lots of experience as a community activist, to come up and address us as our first of our candidates to speak today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm proud to be standing as a candidate for Change UK to make this country a fairer, kinder and more prosperous place to live. I came to this country as a child and have lived in the East Midlands for over 45 years. I am one of the millions of migrants who over hundreds of years have helped make Britain what it is today. Although I'm a physicist by training, I have devoted myself to working in the charity sector. Sadly, I have seen the decline of social care, housing, support for young people, and the voluntary sector across the East Midlands. It is self-evident that leaving the EU will make all of us poorer, resulting in even less money for public services and less money for charities who are already struggling. Vulnerable people, carers, and their families simply cannot afford to have less support and less to spend. They rely on the NHS and social care to support them in managing extremely difficult circumstances that are no fault of their own. But both adult care and the NHS are now barely coping with the demands on their services. Health and social care require investment, not the dismantlement that is taking place at the moment. The two parties, instead of dealing with these problems, have been fixated on patching up their broken parties, no matter the cost. As a result, the country finds itself paralysed, unable to move forward, and not being allowed to think again. Mrs. May tells us the people spoke on the 23rd of June, and we must leave the EU. And yet she and her government have not been able to bring about that decision without doing irreparable damage to the country's economy, the country's union, the country's people. This is because it cannot be done without harming the country. It is only through requesting a confirmatory vote with all the options, no deal, May's deal, and most importantly, remain on the ballot, that we can move forward. I trust the British electorate to make a rational and pragmatic decision, armed with the information, the options, and the consequences that have now become clear after nearly 3 years. I am standing in these elections to be a voice for the hard-working people who rely on public services and charities in this country. This is the first time I have stood for an elected position. This is my first political speech. I believe that our two-party system is broken. We used to live in a two-party state. We've got to change that. Both Labour and the Conservatives have put the needs of their parties before those of the country. As a candidate for Change UK, I support a people's vote and a wish to remain in the EU. The country is deeply divided, and we want to rebuild a visibly broken system. The public need a kinder, more empathetic debate. Change UK are united and are the Remain Alliance. We will always put the country first. As a party, we are asking for tolerance of differing views and evidence-based decision-making. And above all, a word that people forget, a kinder discourse that recognises, after all the debate and discussion, we remain one country. On the 23rd of May, let's change the United Kingdom. It's time for change. Vote Change UK.
Thank you very much for standing and being a candidate. I now want to introduce Joe Laplana. Joe is from Chesterfield. He is a nurse. Stand up, Joe. He is a nurse in Chesterfield, and not just any nurse. He was, in 2018, recognised by the British Journal for Nursing as Nurse of the Year. Joe came to the UK from Catalonia in the year 2000. This is, I think, a great symbol for how we need to be an open and welcoming country, and we are delighted that
I'm a nurse, not a politician, but I needed to stand here today. I'm going to start by saying hello. My name is Joe, and I'm very glad that I'm here. After finishing my nursing studies in Spain in 1997, I couldn't find a proper job, and I ended up delivering pizzas. And I thought, I want a better future. And I took advantage of being an European country, and I came to England with my suitcase, 50 pounds in my pocket, and a dream that I wanted to pursue. And I've been living here ever since. And these 19 years, I have thoroughly loved. I have married here, I bought my first house, and also have my 3 beautiful children. But one of the most important things, I managed to fulfill my dream of being a nurse. And I want to send a message to everybody, well, not everybody, but a lot of people in the last 3 years who's telling me, go home. This is my home, and I know that. Upside down since Brexit. In recent years, migrants like me have been accused of running the country and the NHS to its knees. But let me tell you something. Migrants is one of the main reasons why the NHS is still standing on its feet. Yeah. But things didn't happen overnight. You know, the hostile environment came with the Tories, and it was well spread by the far-right media and everything. Brexit, but was like somebody had opened the tin lid, and all these feelings that before they were not at home, now suddenly people thought they were allowed to be racist and to be xenophobic. And that is not the country I want to live. That is not the country I want my kids to grow up. I want my country to be back the one I fell in love when I came in the year 2000. No longer feel welcome, and I no longer feel valued by this government. The NHS, it's true, have suffered shortage long before Brexit, but I found utterly staggering that under Tories we have lost 200,000 nurses. That's 90 nurses every day who disappear from our hospital wards. And that, for me as a nurse, is keeping me awake at night. We have currently 40,000 vacancies all over the country, and the prevision is that if Brexit goes ahead, another 10,000 will be added to the 40,000. And that worries me because I can no longer guarantee safe care to any of you. Brexit is one of the biggest symptoms that the system is broken. If you remember the promise of 350 million on the side of the bus, I'm still waiting for Boris to deliver that. But now it's vanished. In the same people who put that 350 million on the side of the bus, now they're trying to sell our NHS with the UK-US deal. And I say, not under my name. Our world-class NHS with access to the best medicines and to the best care that at the moment we are. And Brexit is threatened that. If we want NHS to survive another 70 years, we need to stop Brexit and put an end to the hostile environment that the government is obsessed with. On May 23rd, we have a chance to send a message, a clear message to the country. It's time for a change. It's time to vote for our NHS. It's time to vote for Change UK. Thank you.
So proud that you're one of our members. I want to ask another of our candidates, Emma Jane Manley, to come and speak. Emma Jane is a maths teacher and she's a school governor, she's a carer. But I have to tell you a little bit about Emma Jane because she, when we had the referendum back in 2016, like so many other people in this country, listened to what was being said in the debates at the time, and Emma Jane voted Leave in 2016. But let me tell you, Emma Jane is a Remainer now.
Hello, thank you for coming to listen to us today. Please forgive me for not turning around so much. I've got rather silly shoes with a gap here. Okay, I am Emma Jane. I'm a primary school teacher, school governor, mother to two wonderful girls. Unfortunately, one of my daughters has autism, epilepsy and learning difficulties. She's been profoundly disabled, almost we knew from about 9 months old. She needs a lot of care and public support on a daily basis. And sadly, austerity cuts meant that we had to fight for everything she needs. What should have been a few forms to fill in ended up in intimidating tribunals, with us, her parents, pitted against educational psychologists, council funding panels, fighting for what she was entitled to by law. The battles were exhausting, and in certain cases we just had to give up. The background to this story is really important because it influenced my vote. The Leave campaign was based on the promise of prosperity, the message that we would all be better off without middle income straight from Europe, the hopeful promise of extra money for public services which my family really needed. And I fell for it hook, line and sinker. Even as a teacher in the classroom, we need that extra money. Niggling doubts started around the time that Article 50 was triggered, but initially I tried to ignore them. Over the next 2 years, I watched as political mess unfolded like nothing I've ever seen before. I'm going to take my shoes off. And I quietly changed my mind. I didn't announce it loudly. I'd wanted greater prosperity for all and better public services, and I thought that Leave would give us that. It's now plain that the harm Brexit would cause Britain would be unimaginable. In the East Midlands, 9% of our jobs are linked to freight. This is one of the industries that is most likely going to be negatively affected. And our incredible East Midlands universities, which are world class, they're also going to suffer financially if we leave, affecting everyone and everything around them. 60% of people in the East Midlands voted Leave, and I believe many of them, just like me, have now changed their minds. 2 weeks ago, I tweeted about my story, that I felt misled and I sincerely regretted my vote. And wow, what a response. It was viewed by over 1.1 million people, retweeted, commented on, trolled by a few, but the overwhelming response back to me was, me too. So many people got in touch to say, I regret my vote and wish I could change it. My story clearly struck a chord with other ordinary people who were confused by the messages we were given back in 2016. We're all proud of previous generations who fought against far-right extremism, and we've all benefited from the peace, prosperity and public care that has come since that was defeated. Much of this, by the way, is protected in law by the EU. And yet now we see it rising again, disguised in expensive suits and patriotic-sounding quotes of taking back control. Well, here I am, an ordinary mum, standing up saying, I now see through it, and you do not speak for me. Yeah. Information. We know what Brexit's going to look like, roughly, and it's nothing like the promise we were sold. So let's put the choice back to the people. That's the right democratic thing to do. We need a people's vote. The British public deserve to have the final say on what their future will look like now that they have the full facts in front of them. Vote for Change UK and vote for a people's vote. Vote for Change UK if, like me, you want the chance to change your mind. Thank you.
That will be standing for Change UK here in the East Midlands. And as Emma Jane set out, you know, not everybody has come to this from a political background. There are a lot of people who've been outside politics or who've been alienated by one party or another party, and we are coming together quite organically, as you can see in the fact that we had to change rooms and have slightly rethought our plans for today. We don't have the big resources of the main political parties. We have to raise resources, we have to organise from the grassroots up, and so thank you for being part of that and for doing it today and coming along. We're all rolling our sleeves up and going to do the best we can because we have to do it. We have no choice, we have to take a stand. So what I'd like to do now is introduce you to some of my other parliamentary colleagues, because it was not easy for MPs to leave their political parties and to join Change UK. Some people say this constituency is always Labour. This constituency belongs to the Conservatives. We don't know what's going to happen to our fate if and when there is a general election, but we happen to take the view that voters are not owned by the political parties. Votes should be earned by the political parties. founding friends. She was a minister in the Labour government. She was a whip, vice chair of the Labour Party at the time, and has actually been helping do some of our business. We call it business manager, not chief whip, but essentially she's sort of keeping us marshalled as business goes through the House of Commons. Joan Ryan, MP for MP of Europe.
Good afternoon, everybody. Can we just give our fantastic candidates another round of applause? Don't you feel really confident to go and vote for these candidates? Yes. It strikes me that over many, many years, and this is a failing of the political system and of the media, we have not told people the good things that the European Union means for this country. We've allowed criticism to go unchecked, often because it was politically expedient to blame them and come back and absolve yourself.
Absolutely.
All the parties have done this to some degree. Well, now's our chance to put that record straight. So feel free to participate in what I'm going to say. If you want to clap or whoop or say yay, suit yourselves. Get involved. Membership of a trading bloc with over 500 million consumers. That's a pretty big market. Almost 5% of the UK GDP, that's about £78 billion a year, comes from our trading relationship with the EU. It's the world's biggest economy. 44% of all UK exports of goods and services are with the European Union, and then 53% of the UK's imports of goods and services are also with the European Union. So that's 3.1 million jobs in the UK are directly linked to exports to the EU. Who told us that before? The UK has a greater global influence as a member of the EU, as part of a counterweight to the global power of the US, of Russia, and of China. In Europe, and when we think of our kids and our grandkids, we know how important that is. This is now a quick run through, listen to this. Then there's paid annual leave, maternity rights, equal pay, 28 days holiday a year, clear of food labelling, parental leave, freedom of movement, cleaner water, air, seas, rivers and beaches, health and safety at work, tackling climate change, cheaper food and alcohol, though of course I don't touch a drop. Free movement of labour that's helped UK firms to plug the skills gaps, doctors, nurses, as we've heard, translators and yes, plumbers. Absolutely. The single market has brought the best continental footballers to the Premier League. Crucial. Financial support from the EU for over 3,000 small and medium-sized enterprises in the UK, the backbone of our economy. EU funding for British theatre, music and dance. Human rights protected under the EU Charter of Fundamental Rights. The death penalty can never be reintroduced as it's incompatible with EU membership. Strict controls on the operation of multinational companies. The right to reside, all of us have the right to reside in any EU member state and the freedom to work and study in 28 other countries. But don't forget, travelling in Europe after Brexit, you're going to need an international driving licence, insurance, green cards, GB plates on the car, pet passports and vaccinations, only if you've got a pet, that is, of course. health insurance and possibly visas and permits, and the loss of standard roaming charges for your mobile phone. Here in Nottingham, the largest city in the East Midlands, 5.9% of Nottingham's exports go to the EU.
Yep.
Nottingham has received nearly £200 million from EU programmes in recent years to deal with unemployment, which is higher here than lots of other places in the country. They support projects such as BioCity and the redevelopment of the Old Market Square. And the city's universities receive £20 million a year for collaborative research. You never saw all of that on the side of a bus, did you? One untruth, and hundreds and hundreds of positive facts. We are evidence-based. We would need loads of buses. We would need a fleet of buses to tell this story, the true story, to the people of this country. When we don't have a fleet of buses, we have got a bus, we haven't got a fleet. But we can do this. I know we can do this, that we can win seats, we can get this message across. Do you know in Sandwich, Kent, the French owner of the famous delicatessen, the No Name Shop, has received threats from Brexiteers, and our very own Anna Soubry has received some vicious abuse for being a Remainer. Has anyone ever heard of someone being threatened by a Remainer? No, well I haven't, because we are Democrats and we have confidence in our evidence and we believe in the British people and we trust them with a people's vote. We are patriots, not nationalists, and we can win this on the strength of our argument. And because we have our fantastic candidates, you'll have your UK Change Parliamentary Party, and we have a great and positive campaign. But there's something else. And I need you to help me out here and take part. Could you just look at your hands? Like that. You just put your hands in front of you and have a look at them. Because there's the answer. Will it be Brexit Britain on the 23rd of May or Change UK? The answer is in your hands. You have the answer. Thank you. Let's do more. Let's have our street stalls, our rallies like this. Let's tweet and let's talk to people. And let's give them our leaflets. This is your mission, should you choose to accept it. A people's vote. A mission for Remain. A mission for Change UK. So let's do it. Let's just do it.
Before I introduce one of my other parliamentary colleagues, I just wanted to say, actually, Joan, you mentioned in your speech students and young people and the opportunity for the next generation. I'd like to ask Mila Ziedler, who is here as one of our postgraduate students who's come to the United Kingdom to study. Mila, do you want to just come up and say a few words about your views and your experience?
Thank you so much for coming here. My name is Mila Ziedler, and I'm a doctoral student. I am not a professional speech person, and I'm not a candidate for anything. I'm just a regular human being here to share my thoughts. As you can probably tell from my accent, I was not born here. I was born in Poland, but my home is here. I have lived in the UK, thanks to the rights of freedom of movement, for 13 years now. I have a British boyfriend. I have worked and studied at UK universities and have utterly integrated into the fabric of the society. And then the 2016 referendum happened. I I'm one of the 230,000 students who come to the UK to study every year. And as an international student, I've been made to feel very welcome. I'm not sure if this is just the famous hospitality of the Midlands, or if it's also your business acumen, hopefully both. You see, as an EU student, I will generate, on average, £68,000 in profit for the UK. Together, all international students generate a net £20 billion each year for the economy. Thanks partly to the education I've had here, I'm an archivist now, and by extension a historian. All historians know that this region is world famous for its industrial and manufacturing heritage. The very first factory was built here, making the East Midlands the birthplace of the Industrial Revolution. You invented the jet engine and the traffic lights, showing yourselves experts in making things go very fast, and crucially, as any pilot will tell you, how to stop them. 240 years on from that first factory, the Midlands is still the heart of British manufacturing and advanced engineering, accounting for 20% of UK manufacturing output through world-leading business and industry. Alstom, Bombardier, Jaguar Land Rover, JCB, National Grid, Rolls-Royce, Tarmac and Toyota, all great international companies, built on the research and graduates of our world-class universities. East Midlands cities are university cities. Leicester, Nottingham, Loughborough, Derby, Lincoln, Northampton, and Kettering. Today, the Midlands Innovation Universities alone contribute over £2 billion to the wider Midlands economy each year. £1 in every 20 of the regional total. Here in Nottingham, the university contributes over £1 billion per year, and Nottingham Trent University well over £500 million. Between the two, supporting nearly 1 in 20 jobs in the city. There are very few places in the world, let alone the UK, where local fortunes are as tied up with universities as they are in the town in which I'm speaking today. Our universities, like our young people, they don't want Brexit. The Brexit vote was 3 years ago, and by definition, that means that there is not a single person in a standard 3-year course who voted for anything. Let that sink in. An entire university generation that feels nothing short of disenfranchised on the issue that utterly dominates politics of the day. Our businesses cannot afford to lose the EU funding for innovation. The Horizon 2020 research program, for example. We will all be made poorer if the 50,000 EEA nationals working in UK universities feel that they are no longer welcome here. A situation which, I can say from personal experience, is already starting to set in. 17% of academic staff working at UK universities today are from EU countries. 60% of them working in science, engineering, technology. Remember, Einstein. He was a European and a university lecturer here once. And I don't think Einstein, already on his way from one country to another, would have been very impressed by the idea of Brexit. As a scientist, he believed in collaboration. As a humanitarian, he tried to bring people together. Over the next few months, I'm going to work with the Change UK student and universities campaigns to play a very small part in making sure that the country we all share stays together. For any students or university staff who are now watching and who want to play a part, please get in touch. This is all of our futures that we're speaking about today, and we would love to have you working with us. Thank you.
Introduce one of my good friends who is the Member of Parliament for Penston and Stocksbridge, She was in the Labour Party with me for a very long time and took her own very brave decisions about what to do for the future. Nobody can ever say that Angela has fear of taking on an argument. She is absolutely fearless and is prepared to stand up for what she believes in. And she is also a leading member of the Council of Europe. And if anybody understands how international issues affect us and our daily lives, it's Angela. So Angela, would you like to say a few words?
I'm really pleased actually to be following Mila, because on my way over here this morning, I mean I represent a Yorkshire seat, I hope you won't hold that against me, here in Nottingham, but on my way down here this morning on the M1 I couldn't help reflecting on the fact that it's 30 years since I studied here in Nottingham. I am actually a Nottingham University graduate, and I own Nottingham Cable. Nottingham as a mature student. I came from a small village just out in North Lincolnshire, just outside Grimsby. And when I came to Nottingham, I discovered a whole new world. And because I was older, I found that my natural affinities were with the international students at the university. And I enjoyed 3 of the happiest years of my life. My friends were French, they were Spanish, German, Belgian, they were from Bahrain, Bangladesh, Singapore, Sri Lanka, from all over the world, South America. And I remember going down on a minibus to Cornwall, 13 people in the minibus, 9 nationalities. That for me was Nottingham University. That for me was Nottingham. And it was the richest cultural and social experience of my life. And I have never, ever forgotten it. And if you'd said to me in 1989 that in 30 years' time, Britain would be turning its back on its international students, and that the British government would be saying to EU students, you're no longer welcome. We're going to make things so much more difficult for you to come and study here. And if you'd said to me that Britain was on the verge of leaving the European Union, I would never have believed it. Never have believed it. And that's where we are now, and that's why I'm here, and that's why I'm a proud member of Change UK, because if there's ever been a time in history to stand up and be counted, it's now.
Yes.
Yeah. It's now. I make this appeal to all my former Labour colleagues, who I still consider friends. Think about it. Do you want to remain allied to a party that is embracing Brexit? And I say the answer is no. We are not embracing Brexit. And we have a big job before us. And it's not just MPs in Parliament, it's all of us, as Joan pointed out here earlier. It's in our hands. If we want to reclaim the Britain that we know truly exists out there, that embraces diversity, that looks outwards to the world and understands that our future is as part of the European Union. If we want to reclaim the UK that embraced and hosted the Olympics in 2012, we've got to go out there and fight for it. And we fight for it best by starting on May the 23rd, campaigning for Change UK. Let's get all these wonderful candidates elected. Let's get on with it. Thank you very much.
Who is a Member of Parliament for Ilford South. He worked for the Labour Party for many decades in lots of different ways. I'll let Mike explain. But I think if there is somebody who can really, with the breadth of experience from the Foreign Affairs Select Committee, former chair of the Foreign Affairs Select Committee, who knows about the consequences of Brexit and the need for us to change our politics, again, somebody who is not in the least afraid to speak his mind, can I introduce you to Iron Mike Gates?
Thank you very much, everyone, for coming. I was here in Nottingham University in the 1970s when I was the national student organiser of the Labour Party. And I remember getting a message overnight. This is in pre-mobile phone days. I got a message that I needed to phone the Labour Party headquarters. And then I got this message in September 1978. Meeting tomorrow morning, 10 Downing Street, don't tell anybody, 9 o'clock. Then it was announced that Prime Minister Jim Callaghan was going to speak to the country. And so we all packed into the television room at the end of this conference. And at that point, he announced that he wasn't calling a general election and he was going to go on. So I was a bit confused, but the switchboard went off at 5 o'clock at the Labour Party, so I couldn't communicate with them. So instead, I went down to London and I got into my office in the morning, and there's a great big sign on my desk, meeting cancelled. Now that is an allegory for what we have to do with Brexit. Because just because you think something is going to happen, it doesn't have to be like that. And as people have said very, very clearly, people have changed their minds. People know more now than they did. And we, in this country, surely have a right to say, hold on a minute, let's think about this. Let's not rush off the cliff. Let's pause and reflect. And if we recognise that we got a better deal by remaining in the European Union, then we cancel the decision that we did before. But just to be sure, we ask the public, do you agree that we wish to stop this deal, or do you not? And that is all we're saying. And the fact is that for their own reasons, there is an attempted conspiracy going on now to stitch up a deal tomorrow afternoon or later this week between Jeremy Corbyn and Theresa May to stop the MEPs who are going to be elected taking their seats in July, and to get us out of the EU either by the 22nd of May, which is almost impossible, but certainly by the 30th of June. And the reason that Corbyn wants to do it is because, unlike those of us who in the 1970s believed in all that nonsense about socialism in one country, we moved on. Under Neil Kinnock and Tony Blair, John Smith, Gordon Brown, even Ed Miliband, we moved on. And the Labour Party became a pro-European party. And the Labour Party membership today are overwhelmingly pro-European Union, pro-Remain. And the Labour MPs are overwhelmingly pro-Remain. But the leader of the party is determined to get back to normal politics, whatever that is. They even put a briefing note out in the Parliamentary Labour Party saying they wanted to establish a sensible Brexit. What? There is no sensible Brexit. Every Labour member, every Labour representative in the East Midlands and elsewhere. Send Corbyn a message. Vote Change UK on May the 23rd. Stop the lunacy of this policy that is not in the interests of the communities that you represent, and you know it. Vote Change UK.
And look, we've got one last speaker. We'll have a few questions and answers perhaps after, just so we get a sense of what you're thinking. And then I've got a cunning plan for what we're going to do after that. And I'll reveal that in a minute. But can I just say, being a Member of Parliament for Nottingham East, of course, is a massive privilege. But we have a tradition in Nottingham, being a little bit rebellious, of sometimes not just taking the established view, but sometimes, if needs be, standing up and saying what has to be said. And although for several years we've been on different sides of the political chamber, my neighbouring colleague in Broxtowe has been a beacon of hope for those who want people to stand up and speak their minds, and she's stood up in the face of so much abuse and so much threats in circumstances where many of the rest of us would have just said, enough, I'm just going to walk away and do it. But she doesn't take that view. She stands up and she says truth to power, and that is exactly what we need at this particular time. Ladies and gentlemen, can I introduce Anna Subra?
Sometimes, but the reason I think, as I am, is I'm actually from Worksop. But we're not just about Nottingham, of course. We've heard from our magnificent candidates. We have representatives from Derbyshire, I know are here, from Leicestershire, Lincolnshire, and even Northamptonshire. So thank all of you for coming along on what is meant to be a bank holiday Monday. And you may, I hope you don't now say, I don't know why I came. You know why you came. You know why we are all here. We're all here because we believe that our great country has made a terrible mistake. And we made that mistake almost now 3 years ago in the summer of 2016, when 52% of those people that voted for us to leave the European Union. And we now know not just all the falsehoods, not just the tricks, and the blatant lies that people were told. We know that fears and prejudices were preyed upon in order for people to be conned, as so many were, not all of them, but many were, for voting for us to leave the European Union. We now know about the dodgy money and the foreign bots that influenced our great democracy on a scale we've never seen before. And if there was more evidence, we've heard from Emma Jane, spoken from the heart with complete honesty. And many of us know, not just MPs, like the great MPs that we've heard from, but from other people who go out, and my friends are here from the People's Vote in Nottingham, Susan and Linda are here, but we're out there, they're out there every Saturday. They go to Ashfield, they go to Mansfield, they make the case for the People's Vote. And usually we're out in the Market Square in Nottingham. And the thing that is overwhelmingly the case is that people are changing their minds. And damn it, they have a right to change their minds. We're a democracy. But something's happened to this great country of ours. It's as if you're not allowed to have a point of view anymore on Brexit. The 48% have been sidelined, stuck on the side, abused, and almost told to shut up and go away. And finally, people are standing up and saying, no, not in my name. This is not my country. I bet you felt, as I did, real shame when you heard Joe talked about the abuse, and I wish he were alone, but he's not. I have constituents who said the same story, not just EU nationals, but constituents with brown skins who've lived here for generation upon generation, who've been abused and spat at in the street. This is not our country. This is not our country, and we will not allow this to be our country. And as Joan has said, it's in our hands, and we're going to stand up and we're going to fight for what we believe is right. Not just youngsters, you are young in my terms. The thing that we find, Susan and Linda and all the others, Nick's here as well, what we find is the older Leave voters who are saying, you know, I've listened to my children, I've listened to my grandchildren, and now I understand it's about their future. And as you've heard from so many of our great speakers, the future of our country is in the European Union. It has conveyed huge benefits on our country, as you've heard. It's not just about trade. That's incredibly important, of course. But it's about that free movement of people. And we're proud of free movement. We're proud of immigration that has conveyed for generations benefit to our country. And it's about peace, as Joan has said. But it's like Angela said, it's about what we are. What we say about our country. Are we looking outwards? Are we looking to the future? Or are we looking inwards and thinking about a past that actually never existed? We believe a mistake has been made. And we're here because we love our country. And we've heard that expression about us being patriots. But not nationalists, but we love our country, and we have a right to say we believe people have made a mistake, and we believe in democracy, and we believe that people should be able to change their mind, and we believe that people should have a say. Now we have a bit of a better idea of what Brexit looks like. And that is why, without exception, and unlike any other political party, 100% of our MPs, 100% of our supporters believe in a people's vote, remain on the ballot paper and getting out there and fighting for Remain. No other political party has that 100%. That is one of the features that makes this party different from all the others. But we know it's not just about Brexit. Now, some people say, where are your policies on education, on health, on defence, on policing, all the very important issues which are being subsumed by this nightmare of Brexit? And of course, we are going to base, as you've heard, our policies on evidence, not on ideology. And of course, we are going to get out and talk to people at events just like this. And by the way, we think experts might actually be rather useful in determining. But at the moment, let's be brutally honest about this. You know, we're not at the beginning of a campaign where you're going out to seek to change people's minds. We're in the end game of a campaign. And Kate knows this more than many people because she's a great campaigner. So pleased to see Kate Godfrey on the top of the list. And you're all brilliant, but I just thought I'd put that because she has real campaigning experience. And Kate knows we're in actually the final stages of a campaign. So there's never been anything like this before. You know, the beginning is actually the end of the campaign, and our trick is to get that vote out on May the 23rd. But you know, we're not just about Brexit. That's important. It's a big issue facing our country, the biggest issue since the Second World War. We're also about changing British politics because it's broken, as Chris said. And people in this country are fed up to the back teeth with the old way of doing politics. Politics and policies based, as I say, on ideology. Spin. The lack of honesty that Joan talked about, just giving the example of how previous leaders have reacted to the European Union, and doing backroom stitch-up deals. People are fed up with that. They want change, that's why we're here. We're a new party, we're all about change, that's what Change UK is all about. But look at what's going on. As Mike Gapes has been telling us, we're in the most bizarre situation where a Labour Party, the Labour Party, with Barry Gardner Barry Bazagan, one of the most important job in the shadow cabinet, actually admits that the Labour Party is in the process of bailing out the Conservatives, not just to facilitate, but to enable Brexit to take place. That is an appalling indictment of the Labour Party and indeed how broken our politics is. And that's why it does. I could go on at length about the state of the Conservative Party. But we all have lives to lead. We have, I'm afraid to say, a hapless, hopeless Prime Minister with a cabinet that really is, with few exceptions, a cabinet of total incompetence. And how bad things have got. It is, I accept, alleged. It is alleged that the former Defence Secretary leaked from the National Security Council. That's a first, and it's appalling. But it's actually worse than that. Because it wasn't done on a high point of principle. It was done for one reason only. Blatant, naked, personal ambition. That's the thing. You know who is waiting in the wings. Boris Johnson. Calm down, friends. Boris Johnson. Absolutely determined to implement the one thing that you were promised that was actually credible by the Leave campaign. That we would not leave without a deal. That's what we were promised. We would not leave without a deal. But that's exactly what Boris intends to do if he becomes our next Prime Minister. The ultimate disaster for this country, the thing that will make us more worse off than any form of Brexit. And any form of Brexit will make us worse off. If you don't believe me, the government's done some impact assessments on it. The government's in favour of Brexit. Any which way you cut it, Brexit will make us worse off. Boris Johnson and his crew, who now have captured the Tory party, want that hard, no-deal Brexit. And again, it's up to us to stand up and make the case against it and demand that people's vote. Now, as you know, I left the Tory party. And it's for very well-rehearsed reasons, which I'm not going to go over again. I'm just going to be honest with you, because I think people want that honesty in politics, right? Yeah. And I do tend to speak my mind. And this is what you see is what you get. So when I knew that the Tory party had left me, because it has, it's left me, right? I had to think, well, what do I do next? And I'm going to be very honest with you. I suppose I could have sat as an independent. And of course, the first political party I ever joined was the Liberals. I was in Worksop, 17, joined the Liberals. Do you want me to, can I tell you this quick story? We've got time, Gracie.
Not really, but carry on.
No, don't repeat this, but it's just that the Libs, typical Libs, absolutely brilliant campaigners, turned up at our house and stuck this poster in the hedge. And my mum was a proper firm Tory, had met my father at the Young Conservatives, went, David, look what they've done. We lived in Clun Park at the time. Look what they've done. These Liberals have come along. They've stuck a poster in the hedge. Tell her, David. Take it out. My father said, I'm telling you now, Francis, it's staying, because even I'm thinking about voting for the Liberals. So, first political party I joined was the Liberals. And of course, I worked with the Lib Dems in government. I consider Joe Swinson a friend of mine, and it was a pleasure serving in that coalition government, working cross-party. But I'd also spent 2 years with Chuka Ramuna, working first of all in the all-party parliamentary group, the EU relations, and with my dear friend Chris Leslie, getting to know Chuka, getting to know Chris, and then forming the People's Vote. And having decided that the Tory party had left me, I didn't need to think very long about what to do next, because I knew I had more in common with Chuka and with Chris than with anybody else, not just because of our views on Brexit, but because of their vision for the change that is needed in our politics and their vision of the future of this great country. And that's why I didn't hesitate to to join forces with these great, brilliant people who left their party and then formed Change UK. And I think that needs to be put absolutely on the table, that we are new, we are different, and let's be honest, if the Remain parties were going to achieve the things that needed to be achieved since the referendum, we would have seen it by now. And I believe we are the party that offers that change, offers that real new way of doing politics, and that's our realignment that we have to have. And that's why we formed this party. That's why we've got 70 candidates. And obviously I'm biased. Obviously the East Midlands candidates are by far the best in the entire country. But no, they are all absolutely outstanding candidates, and I can tell you now, I'm not going to say to anybody, don't vote for a Change UK candidate, vote for them. The length and breadth of this country. Get out on May the 23rd and vote for Change UK. It's the only way to deliver a people's vote, to deliver Remain. Get out there and do everything we can to get these brilliant people elected.